I'm honored to introduce our guest this evening. Paul Belcher is owner and co-founder of Mountain Crane Service in Salt Lake City. Mountain Crane Service is the market leader in the Intermountain West for crane operation, maintenance, and full-service rentals across a range of industries. Mountain Crane Service generates annual revenues of $50 million and employs 250 individuals. In 2012, Paul was recognized as one of Utah's 40 under 40 professionals. Paul received his bachelor's degree in Spanish from Utah State, followed by an MBA from the John M. Huntsman School of Business. He also earned a master's degree in international business from Thunderbird in 2003. Paul and his wife, Courtney, also a fellow Aggie, are the proud parents of 4 children. Please join me in welcoming Paul Belcher.
Okay, how's everyone doing today? I hope all of you get the experience of standing in front of a room of people that are obligated to listen to you. It's empowering. So thank you for signing up a class that obligated you to participate. So I'm Paul Belcher, and I own a crane company. Has anybody ever been around, or has anyone ever been in a crane? Oh, nice. Nice. So, craning is one of those interesting little niche things that, was never covered in any of my college courses, and most people are a little confused with and think they maybe have seen one time or not. So, I love what I do. It's kind of an entrepreneurial opportunity that found me. It wasn't anything that I went to school for or studied or something that I grew up being passionate about. So what I want to share with you guys today is how this entrepreneurial opportunity, I was a college student. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I came from a family where my father was an entrepreneur my whole life. And everyone asks you, well, how do you end up with a crane company and 250 employees in a room of people obligated to listen to you? So I'm going to kind of walk you through that. Hopefully you can find some value in it. I'm going to share some lesson learns with you, and we'll kind of go from there. So this has always been one of my favorite quotes ever. He's a serial entrepreneurial. Somebody stop him before he makes a killing again. And I kind of like to share a little background of what I grew up. So my father was a serial entrepreneur. He started with a landscape company. He actually, the year I was born, part of his business model was selling BS. He actually took bull manure, put it in a bag. So he sold poo and made money doing it. After the commercial landscaping entity pretty much fizzled out in his endeavors to grow it, he then started naturally a resort shuttle bus service in Park City, Utah. Natural progression. That naturally turned into a parking service company, which naturally turned into an auto body and repair business, right? Which naturally turned into a towing company. That was called Belcher's Towing in Park City, Utah. To build additional revenues, he added a tire service, which he ultimately discontinued, and a U-Haul dealership. Still available if you need to rent a U-Haul. And then him and his brother, this is real, started the Roller Hockey League of America, because it's a natural progression from... So clearly the Roller Hockey League then gave way to the primary business that he continues with to this day, which is a towing company. And it's been a very successful business for him. And when I went to Utah State, because you cannot make more than $2 or $3 an hour working in the valley, I would drive to Park City, Utah, and I would drive tow truck professionally, and my wife would waitress tables, and while we were going to school, that's what we did. We drove tow trucks. I drove tow truck, and my wife was a waitress, but this is obviously, I can see how you guys can see the natural progression into a crane company already. So, my lesson learned here, and one of the things that I really value And one of the things that I like to share is the theory of don't empower yourself to quit. Now, what I've learned over my life employing people and for myself, nobody ever quits for a bad reason. I've never had an employee walk into me and say, you know what, I just don't feel like doing it, so I'm not going to try. Everybody that comes to me and everybody in their lives, when they find an opportunity to quit, they empower themselves to not feel bad about it. I have a family. I can't take the risk. I don't have the background. I don't have the money. Well, there you go. You're empowered to quit. Go get a job somewhere. And this is one of the themes I like to reiterate is there's always a good rationalization to quit. And everybody usually quits when they take enough steps and then they go, okay, I feel comfortable with this justification. I've now empowered myself to quit. I don't feel bad about giving up anymore, and I'm going to continue on. So whatever your purpose is, don't ever empower yourself to quit. Because everyone wants you to quit. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Your competitors, the market, other people want you to quit. So the morning you wake up and decide, I've now empowered myself to quit, everything around you will accommodate that. Everything around you wants to quit. Because the excuses for quitting are terrific. No one's ever quit for a bad excuse. So, commercial landscaping, to selling BS, to doing tires, to peddling U-Hauls, to a towing company. My dad wanted to be an entrepreneur. He never empowered himself to quit. So my background is I grew up and went to school on the west side in Salt Lake. I went to West Jordan High. Any West Jordan Jaguar grads here? Not representing at all today. I then served an LDS mission in Peru, which is a great experience where I was able to learn Spanish. And then I got really bad grades in high school. We had to do some negotiating so that I was allowed to walk and graduate because I did not get very good grades. On my mission, I was taught an important lesson that if you're going to accomplish anything in your life, education is the tool and the resource that's going to make that a reality for you. That education is immeasurable in its value. And so when I came home from my mission, I committed to attending university. I wasn't sure how I was going to go about that. I wasn't sure how we were going to pay for it. My family's economic means are pretty humble at the time. So it was something that we were going to have to figure out. And so when I attended Utah State, within the first couple of years being there, I identified Thunderbird as a school that I really wanted to go to, which for any of you that don't know it, it's an international management school down in Arizona. It's routinely ranked as the best international business school in the country. So they had a neat program where if you received an MBA, you could go there and then do additional graduate work and receive a Master's of International Management. So at Utah State, I finally dedicated myself to learning, and I took advantage, and the biggest thing in learning is to take advantage of the tools and resources around you. And those tools and resources are the books, the professors, and everybody around you in this room. Everybody came here to learn. Everybody here hopes to learn. There's not going to be another time in your life where you can put learning as a priority, or that you'll have the resources available to you to learn like you have now. And make sure you take advantage of it. Had I not taken advantage of it, had I not committed myself, had I approached education with the same attitude I had in high school, I could not have taken advantage of the opportunities I've had in my life. So the next lesson learned for me was the immeasurable value of education. And I cannot overstress this enough. The whole rest of your life you'll have time to do and travel and tour and all these things you want to do, but you will not have another time in your life where you have allocated your reality to learning. Right? And of course, everybody wants to have a great time while they're learning. So make sure that you have a lot of fun, but do not let it rob from you the opportunity for education. Immeasurable value of education. If you're going to accomplish anything as an entrepreneur, it's going to find itself in the basis of education. So I forgot to tell you. So now you're proud of me. I'm not going to quit. I've got a bunch of education. I have 2 master's degrees, right? And I leave school with my 2nd master's degree to return to tow truck driving. I take pride in being the only man with 2 master's degrees to professionally drive tow truck. So when I graduated school, the reason you do that is to get a job offer, right? And down at Thunderbird and here, they have an awesome careers team that you can go to, and they'll help you apply for jobs. And there's recruiters from big companies with great job opportunities, and everyone's daydreaming that you're going to leave school with a job offer. That's all why we went to school, right? And my wife and I received a fantastic job offer, a starting salary of 6 figures, more than we'd ever dreamed, more money than we ever thought we'd make in our lives. And as we received the offer and talked about it, we both realized she grew up in an entrepreneurial family. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. We wanted to start a family. So we did what anyone would do. We turned down the job. Literally, we turned it down. We still talk about it today. We still want to go back and take it. We're not quite sure if it was the right decision. But we turned down the job offer to go back to waitressing tables and driving tow truck professionally. And so I'm driving tow truck and professionally, looking for business opportunities. And while that's going on, I attended a Christmas party with a group of friends of mine and some kids I'd went to high school with, and I'd gotten to know their parents pretty well. And one of them was kind of teasing me that you went off to your fancy college and you got your fancy degrees, and boy, aren't you fancy now? And giving me a hard time. He's like, well, why'd you do that? And now you're back here driving tow truck? What were you thinking? And I said to him, well, I came back here to buy your crane company from you. Totally off the cuff, totally funning with him, totally just being a punk. He owned a crane company, a mason company, and he owned storage units. And he goes, what do you mean? I go, well, that's it, man. I went and got fancy degrees so I could come and buy your crane company, Jamie. That's what I want. And he's looking at me like, what do you mean? I'm like, that's why I'm here, and I'm going to be in your office on Monday so you can buy me lunch, and we can negotiate my purchase of your crane company. And he laughed at me and ruffled my hair like, oh, aren't you cute? So I went to his office on Monday for lunch, and he took out a legal yellow pad and he wrote down cranes, dollar amounts next to him, and it was $3 million, and he ripped it off and he handed it to me, which I still have, and he said, bring me $3 million and you can buy my crane company. Well, how do you beat that, right? I mean, all I need is $3 million, right? I've got a pile of student loans, but I've got a master's degree. So what's the first thing any good MBA student or good business student would do? What's the first thing you do if you have a business that you're going to acquire or run or go get a loan for? Come on, somebody. What's the first thing? A business plan. Oh, this was the company. It was McQueen Crane. But not just any business plan. An epic business plan. That's all you need, right? Like, I'd spent years making business plans. I had 2 master's degrees that said I knew how to make business plans. So you make a business plan, right? And then you take your business plan and you go, I need $3 million. Right? And what do they say when you need $3 million? So go to the banks, because you got an epic business plan with a soundtrack nonetheless. Right? I mean, the thing was like this thick. It was, again, a market analysis, right? Models of cranes, it was epic. So I went to all the banks. Said, here's my epic business plan. What do you think? Any idea how that went? Any takers? That's exactly how that went. So I empowered myself to quit and gave up. Because, if you don't have money, they won't give you money, right? No, that's not what I did. So don't empower yourself to quit. And it was I'm really glad I did it, and it really helped because I legitimately took this business plan down, and I'll never forget sitting down with a business officer at Zion's who's saying, now let me understand, you've been out of school for 6 months, you've never worked in the crane industry, you've never been a part of it, and you're literally asking me to propose to my board that we lend you $3 million to buy these? Of course I am, absolutely. And it was, of course they weren't going to lend me the money. But it just moved me to different spots of how to leverage the opportunity. So, of course now comes the art of the deal, right? They told you no, what are you going to do? How are you going to work the situation? So, for me, I then went and sat down and I approached my father and his business partner, which is my uncle, and I said, here's my business plan, and I would like for you guys to help me facilitate this. I'll own it, and you can be investors in it. Isn't that great? And so I did the presentation, the soundtrack, the whole bit. And my uncle, one of my favorite things, he goes, you might have went to school and got your fancy educations, and you got your fancy knowledge and your fancy plan, but you're forgetting one thing. He who has the gold makes the rules. And if you want to use our gold, we're going to be equal partners. Third. And they had a piece of real estate that I wanted to use as collateral to secure a down payment. So now we're flying, right? Now we've got epic business plan, right, with epic business partners. Right? It's just going to magically materialize, right? Like we're going to trade off the criteria of somebody else, and it's all just going to magically happen. Isn't that how it works? Right? So now we're going to take a business plan that's got some more heft to it, some financials of other businesses. It's got some real estate assets in there. Surely we're going to go back to the banks, and they're just going to say, where do we give you? Here you go. It's that easy, right? So we went back with the epic business plan and the epic business partners, and guess how that went? Same problem, right? If you need money, they're not going to give you money. So, once again, an opportunity to empower yourself to quit. So, to this day, I think a big part of this success is just due to not knowing better and just not stopping. And while I was at one of those banks and talking to one of those loan officers who was explaining to me how absurd the idea of what I presented to him was, I said, well, who wouldn't it be absurd to? Kind of looked at me and said, well, have you ever thought about maybe doing an SBA loan? And the credit unions do a lot of those. I go, the credit unions do a lot of those? He goes, yeah. He goes, here's the name of somebody. Here, go to this. And it was totally a shoo you out of the room thing, right? But I asked them, where's somewhere else? You're laughing at me and you're not going to do it. What do you think? Where do you think I could go be successful with this? I didn't put my head down in shame and, well, no one's going to go for this. So they sent me to the mighty 3-branch Jordan Credit Union, who does auto loans, home second mortgages, and obviously crane loans. The beauty of landing at the Jordan Credit Union is the loan officer was as young as me and also didn't know any better. So it's a wonderful starting point. And I said to him, I think an SBA loan might work for this. And he goes, okay. So him and me sit down in his office, and we pulled out the SBA note, the loan binder. Him and me, we pulled out the loan binder and started reading the loan binder to figure out how in the world we could make sense out of the loan binder to fit the business plan. And we found a part of it that's purpose was for agricultural development, but because it was untitled equipment, it fit within the criteria of the loan structure. Total obscure thing that nobody knows about, and nobody would have spent the time to look for. Like I said, he was too young to know any better, and we spent the time to just read through it. So we put together an SBA loan proposal, and he did a great job of figuring out how to mitigate the risk for his company. And what a lot of banks do with SBA loans, and what the opportunity to them is, when they source and secure them, they can sell them, which was something that he educated me on. I didn't know that. I thought banks took money out of their vault and handed it to you and you used it. I didn't know any better. Most mortgages get resold, loans get resold. Well, because the SBA carries a portion of the liability, it's a very easily sellable note for the bank. So when they were putting it together, they had every intention in the world of booking the deal with me and then selling it off. So now they've got some incentive to help me make this happen. And it was a unique opportunity that we were able to cultivate out of just not taking the no. Digging for ways to make it work for the bank, to make it work for us, to make it feasible, and never stopped asking questions. One of my favorite things, though, that happened is after he got the loan approved, which I still couldn't believe when he brought it to me, and I don't think he could believe, and it took about 4 months. They had the list of things we had to bring to the closing, right? And on it, one of the things was the sales tax. You're buying $3 million worth of stuff. There was $200,000 worth of sales tax that had to be paid. And I remember thinking, might as well be $1 billion, because where's $200,000 going to come from? And I remember telling my dad, like, well, we were this close. That's pretty cool. We were this close. I guess that's that, because where are we going to get $200,000 for sales tax? And he goes, I was talking to one of the guys that's a good friend of mine that owns a trucking company. And he does something called apportioning, which gives you a sales tax waiver form, and then you pay quarterly use tax. And he's told me I should do it with my tow trucks. I'm like, all right, let's go visit him. So we went and visited him, and we said, what's this thing about? How could you feed? And I can still remember this day, Form 1041C, and it's sales tax exemption. Most beautiful words ever. So he tells us, you go down to the Utah State Tax Commission, right? And you tell them that you need to apportion your fleet, which meant nothing to me. And he told us where to go, and you go to the window, right? Oh, TC 719. You go to the window, and you tell them you need to apportion. They'll give you the sales tax exemption form. I'm like, that can't be a thing. He's like, yeah, it's a thing. So we go down there, we go up to the window, and we ask the little lady, typing away behind her, like, we heard there's a sales tax exemption form, and she's looking at you like, what? We said, well, we need to apportion our fleet, and she's like, all right. Walk over there, you need to fill out all these forms. So we go over there and we fill out all these forms. Did we fill them out right? She's like, yeah, you did. Here, hang on a second. She's filing stuff and plugging on her computer, and I'm sitting there like, okay. And then I see him fly out of her printer right there like magic. Sales tax use exemption. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is real. She's going to hand us these. She does some more paperwork, puts it in a file, and then she hands it to us, and we're grabbing it from her, and she goes, oh, you've got to stop by the window down there. You got to go to window C. Well, we wander down to that window. She has a cash register. I told my dad, I go, this is going to be really embarrassing when this lady asks for $197,000 and we tell her we got to get our wallet out of the car. So now she's plugging on the cash register and I'm sitting there, and she took them back from us, right? We go over there and she takes them back, and it was like we had them and then they left, and you're like, they're right there. And she's plugging away on her cash register, and I'm just, puckering up and just, oh no, this is going to be so weird. And she's ringing, and she goes, okay, and she pulls out some more forms and some stickers. And then she goes, your total is $6. I sat there, and I was like, and I look over at my dad, and change is flying out of his pocket, and dollar bills. He's like throwing it at her. Well, when you apportion your fleet, you have to get stickers. You got to put a sticker on the crane. The sticker's $2. We had 3 of them, $6. So I called up Jim at the bank. I said, I have sales tax exemption forms. He's like, that's not a thing. I'm like, I have them. He's like, did you make them? I'm like, no, I got them from the state of Utah and everything. He's like, no, you don't. I'm like, yes, I do. So we went back in and said, here is our sales tax exemption forms. And with that, we had, there was some closing fee costs. And we asked them for a startup. They gave us a $25,000 SBA line of credit. So they closed the loan, I think they sold the loan as quickly as they could. They closed the loan, gave us a credit line, and we were now a crane company. And what we earned, so this is one of the things I really, really like to share. And I read this when I was at Utah State, and I remember reading it in the old Merrill Library, and I didn't understand it. And I didn't understand it because it has the word assets. Understand what your assets are and learn to leverage them to your advantage. Well, you go to class every day and the accounting professors tell you what the assets are, right? You got liabilities, you got assets. Somebody name an asset that you might have.
Cranes.
Sure, cranes. A car, a house, right?
Side footballs.
Yeah, they're physical, they're tangible, they're worth money, right? And you take your assets and then you leverage those assets. Well, the article I read that I found very interesting really changed the way that I understood and thought about this, and really is how we ended up with our ability to facilitate the origins of our company. And what they meant by that is there's a multitude of tools and resources available to you that are your assets. Your education is one of the most important assets you're going to receive. A network is an immeasurable asset. Every time we ran into a roadblock, we went out to somebody that we knew and had a relationship with and asked them questions. That was taking advantage of our asset of a network. Government programs. There's a plethora of programs and donations and people that want to facilitate you being successful that you can take advantage of. Personal relationships. My company started because I got along good with the dad of one of his kids I went to school with. All of your personal relationships. Physical assets, right? That's what we talked about. Your checking account, which is probably, not your strongest asset. Financial assets. Personal talents. You may be really good at math. You may be really good, maybe have physical talents, athletic talents, a sense of humor, creativity. I remember reading Benjamin Franklin's autobiography, and one of the things that always stuck out to me is he commented on how his ability to write well was something that had always served him as a useful tool. Now, he didn't like to write. He wasn't passionate about it. He wasn't writing novels. That wasn't his joy. But he recognized that he was better than most people at his ability to author things. And he recognized that opened doors and introduced him to people. So he spoke about it in a very, much like you would talk about a set of tools. Like, this tool is useful for that. He wasn't passionate about it. It didn't define him. But he recognized he was a very talented and capable author. It was an asset he had that he used to leverage opportunities for himself. So after all that, what I always like to tell people, all that you did, all that hard work ever did for us was earn us an opportunity. Once you've earned the opportunity, you've got to roll your sleeves up and you got to put in the work, right? You got to put in the work. So this was the first crane. Went to Egypt last year. Finally sold it. It was kind of sad. It may or may not have the identification placard that now hangs in my office. This is my personal crane that we own. That's my favorite crane. This is a massive crane in the crane industry. There's this crane and its twin are actually at the Salt Lake City airport right now building the new terminal expansion. And it's a 660 metric tons, so about 700 US ton crane with lifting enhancements that'll increase it from there. This is a type of work we do a lot of. It's called tilt-up work. When they build buildings, these panels were poured as concrete slabs, and then we lift them up with a crane and put them in position as walls. So they can build the building out of concrete by pouring it on the ground. This was a neat project we did. This was a business that we've kind of grown into out of our core business. This right here is called a self-propelled platform trailer. And it drives itself, it steers itself, it'll go over any terrain. This thing on top here, this is out at Energy Solutions disposal facility. So inside of it is an old steam generator from Florida that was from a nuke plant. And this big white thing is 8 inches thick steel shell, just big round, and they just put it in there to contain it so the radiation can't come out. And it came in on rail, and then we lifted it with a big gantry system onto this, and it weighs 1.2 million pounds. And then we drove it into the storage facility, and talk about a business model. If you can get a license and a permit to store nuclear waste, work on that. That's a business model. This is a crane, just doing a bridge project. This one works in Wyoming, so we kind of did a little Wyoming love. This is another big crawler crane, building some buildings in downtown Salt Lake. This is the truck, one of the trucks we have that pulls the big, long platform trailer system. This is the lifting enhancement tool for this crane. This is just another big crawler crane working at an oil refinery in Salt Lake City, doing a turnaround project. This is another big part of our business. We primarily service, and the companies, there's a lot more to our 15-year history of how we've gotten where we are. But one of our primary focuses is on the energy industry. So we work a lot with oil refineries and gas plants. And then also we do a lot of wind turbine work. And this is a picture of one of our cranes out in Iowa. This is Iowa cornfields. And up here, the gearbox in this wind turbine is worn out. So we're lifting out the gearbox and we'll lift in a new one. And it's also a really cool picture. This is another one of our heavy haul tractors that we use. This part of our business we started doing about 5 or 6 years ago because everything heavy came to us on these big trucks. And it would get craned on a truck and then hauled somewhere and then craned off a truck. And coming to the same site our crane was, and we saw it as an additional business opportunity for us to grow a revenue stream by adding it to our portfolio. This was an expansion up at Deer Valley. This is the roll for a new ski lift. This was a neat job we did at the Chevron oil refinery. They came to us and asked if it was feasible. You can see down here that we stuffed a 10-pound bag in a 4-pound hole. And there was a lot of engineering and a lot of work that went into this project to swap this unit. And anytime you can create, this is at the Chevron oil refinery, anytime you can expedite their projects, it's of a lot of value to them. This is that big crane building wind farm in Oklahoma. This is a big transformer for a power station. That's our Utah crane. Not a single boo. Boo. That's our BYU crane. Not a single boo. Boo. Now we're representing. So, one of my pride and joys is we got to work on the old expansion of the football stadium. So, it was really neat for me to come back, and yes, we did a fair amount of donations on it as well to help expedite it, but representing some Aggie pride. Oh, so okay. So I learned. So there was people. I learned that you were obligated to attend dinner with one of the speakers. So Dan Clark's lunch had filled out. So everybody that missed up sign-up day apparently got funneled into my dinner. So I appreciate everyone that came to our dinner once again being obligated. Thank you for that. But he told me they had to be there and they have to go to lunch. He also told me you guys are responsible for 5 takeaways. So every speaker that comes, you guys are supposed to pull out 5 takeaways from what they present. So I'm gonna share one. I'm gonna give you a takeaway that I'm gonna tell your teacher to watch for. And one of the things I find that's opened a lot of doors of opportunity for me. You may or may not have derived from this point. I'm a pretty bold personality, and I'm pretty unafraid of anything, and I truly embrace the reality there's no such thing as a bad question. And we've gotten in the middle, and I've gotten in the middle of so many things by asking. I've been amazed at how reserved people are to ask. It blows my mind that either social cues or whatever the reason is that you empower yourself to not ask never makes sense to me. In fact, I generally ask and then apologize more often than not. But ask. And through the old asking and harassing and teasing, we built a friendship with the Jazz Bear. And then tried to figure out how to build on that for opportunities to market who and what we are. So this is a cool video that we kind of worked our way into that was actually played at a jazz game. So I'm going to play it for you because I really like it. Anyways, that was a fun opportunity that we got ourselves in the middle of by just boldly asking people and badgering them. So I encourage you to do that. Now, very rarely, one of my favorite things is now they come to visit me, right? And when I went to visit them, they gave me the ha-ha. So, woohoo! So my takeaways or lesson learns. So here's 3 of your 5. And then I gave you your other one already. Don't empower yourself to quit. Take a minute kind of figuring out what that is. Because whatever you gave up on your life, education or goals or dating a pretty girl, I don't know. At some point, you talked yourself into being okay for you to quit and you believed it. Because there was no reason to quit other than you validated it to yourself. You empowered yourself to quit because you came up with a good enough excuse. Immeasurable value of education. While you're here, make sure you take advantage of this. Make sure you take advantage of your time here. Make sure you take advantage of the resources. And there are so many resources. Most of your professors are industry professionals, and they have a network of relationships and people they know that you rarely gets taken advantage of because you're too quick bolting your way out of class. I mean, Mike wrote a book, like literally wrote the book on meeting entrepreneurs. There's so many resources, your teachers, your classes, the facility, the school has a network of, and so few people ever take advantage of them. And then for me, understanding your assets. Understanding what they really are, because when you know and you can identify all your assets, that's where you start leveraging, right? You leverage assets to build anything. And if you overlook assets you have, you'll miss opportunities. So, and then my takeaway, and I'm going to just give this assignment out. I'm going to liberally give assignments out. And ask, so I want one of the things that, and this happens to me regularly, it's happened to me while I've been here, people are hesitant to ask a question. They have a question and they want to ask it. You've all wanted to ask a question of somebody, a business professional, somebody you've been itching to ask a question, and you may have walked around the question, but you didn't ask it. I want you to share with them a question you've been dogging to ask, and you finally asked it. Just go ask it, and I want you to share with your teacher the results of it. The reason you didn't ask is you were afraid of something. You were concerned about something. They were going to get mad, or you were going to feel silly, or you should already know it. Well, you cannot open doors if you don't ask questions. You cannot open doors if you don't try. You cannot have opportunities if you're too afraid of embarrassing yourself. And for me to be where I am, I jumped into the pool of embarrassment over and over and over and over again, and found most of my opportunities in there. So that's one thing I always find interesting when I come and present, is how much hesitation, especially young people, have about asking questions, or they ask around questions. So I want you to ask a question to somebody, or of a business professional you've been hesitant to ask. Ask it. That's your other takeaway in my assignment. And then you can freelance your fifth one. I did your assignment for you. No excuses. I think that's all I have. I know we're I don't know how long we were scheduled to go for. I have more presentations. We can do more. I have presentations I've given to customers that embody my favorite thing in the world, Trojan horse marketing. Or we can do questions. I don't care. Or we can leave.
So we're just going to do a Q&A like we've done in the past. So if you have a question, come down this side right here, and we'll take a few questions before we finish up.
This will qualify as your assignment for asking a question too. Look at that. Not one single question. Not one single question. All right?
I've got a quick question. So when you're using heavy machinery like this, and I saw all the different jobs you're working on, do you have like a set measurement of goal of how often you want those assets used, right? So I know that obviously you're not making money when it's sitting, and sometimes they're leveraged, as you talked about earlier. What's kind of the goal? How often do you want those moving? Is it kind of 24/7, or how do you balance that?
That's a good question. So the core of that, and I don't know, who does the presentations? Because if I could show some slides off of this, it might help everybody understand a little bit more about the crane industry. I don't know if someone can plug that in. But you got to figure out where your revenue is derived from, and ours is derived from utilization. So our primary metric, and the thing that is the most important to us, is utilization, and managing that with capital-intensive assets. And everything you do that you're going to go create money with, if you go buy apartment complexes, if you go buy whatever, and you're going to use that as a tool and resource to make money, there's a capital investment required, right? Whatever you're investing capital in has to create you a return. So utilization is key for us. Will that work? Okay. So I'm going to just walk through these really quick. So kind of give you guys a little bit more overview of the industry and my company, if you will. So these are all the different types of cranes that we own. These are called crawler cranes with the big crawler tracks. These are called hydraulic cranes. These are called lattice boom cranes. They all serve a different market segment, and they all derive their utilization from different sources. This one was fully equipped, was $5 million. That one's like $2.2 million. This one was $1 million. The little one was pretty inexpensive. It was like $80,000. That one behind it. So that kind of gives you an idea of that was $1.5 million. That kind of gives you an idea of the cost associated with the assets. So if they're not utilized, they're going to run you out of business. And then this is the specialized hauling business that we kind of added on or included with ours. And these are the tools and resources we use in those. And we don't do standard over-the-road trucking. We do these kind of unique, heavy, specialized. This is wind. So we do maintenance. So with this crane, and that one is another asset that was about $6 million. We can take the hub and rotor off a wind turbine and replace the bearing right there. So as wind turbines spin, they drive a shaft. There's a big bearing right there. And as that bearing gets, it can't wear, it has a tolerance. If it gets out of tolerance, then it creates vibrations and will, break the turbine. So they swap them pretty regularly. And then we went and got contracts with kind of some key providers in that industry. The tower crane that we're sitting in the shadow of. I have a crew that assembled that crane. The tower crane we don't own because we don't do tower crane work, but we developed the technicality and the skills to do tower cranes. This is our refineries. We have contracts with Sinclair, Chevron, Phillips, Endeavor, which is Tesoro, to service refinery work. We have an engineering team that just is dedicated to doing that. And then we have a support team of technicians that supports all of our gear out in the field. Engineering is kind of one of our ones we hang our hat on and take a lot of pride in. And this is drawing the lifts up before we execute them with our engineering team. This is an example of a very tight lift we did at an oil refinery where it was going to take an extra day to demo this out. And we proposed to them being able to lift it out, which would save them a day on schedule and get the refinery turned on sooner. So we modeled it, and we only had an inch of clearance and convinced them to let us do it. However, if we went and did it and it didn't work, then it would, they'd lose more time. So you can see here how compact the environment is we're trying to work in and how much data we had to gather to actually do the engineering. We have all the lifting weights and the requirements here. You can see we kind of walk them by each other. Anyways, so that gives you a little bit more of understanding. Anyways, we've done about 335,000 turnaround hours. So we do a lot of refinery. That's when they turn the oil refinery off to maintenance parts of it to turn it back on. So, okay.
Yeah, so my question has kind of two parts. So on campus, they're building a new building and they have this giant stationary crane.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, how do you put that together without another crane?
So we did put that together with one of our cranes. So you're talking about the big white,
big
T-shaped crane?
Yeah.
So those cranes are called tower cranes, and their application is more high-rise buildings, right? If you're building up,
Right.
we don't own those types of cranes, but we use the cranes that put them up, and we actually have the crews that go up on the crane and bolt them together. So it takes a big crane from the ground that lifts up and puts those cranes together in the air until they're done working. And those cranes can't lift a lot of weight. They're more for handling a lot of material like sheetrock and things that go in the building to build it.
Okay, so just so if you need a crane to put up a crane, I just want to ask you, when do you think it's appropriate, obviously to buy these $1 million pieces of equipment, you need to go to other companies like banks to get that help. So when do you think it's appropriate to get help from bigger companies to grow versus a more organic growth? How do you decide?
I don't think it. So, and I told the class we spoke to earlier, I'm personally believe in revenue. And if you can get the revenue partnering with a bigger company, partner with a bigger company. If you can source the revenue organically, revenue is what matters, right? Whatever medium will empower you to build revenue, that's what you should pursue. Because if you pursue revenue, as revenue comes in, that'll facilitate growth and opportunity, right? So you should look for the veins of revenue and chase them, and then opportunities will come with those. That's my opinion. So.
Cool. Thank you.
You had your chance. You were obligated to be at dinner. I saw you there.
No, it's okay. I was just wondering, how do you even go about buying a crane? I was just kind of curious how that works when you're dealing with a piece of equipment that'll cost $1 million. Do you custom order it, or do you have to buy it from someone else?
So I'm going to give you two parts to that answer. So it's like anything in the world. Somebody builds and makes it. Anything that's built and made, somebody sells it. So you just got to find the guy that sells it, right? And he'll educate you on it and be happy to give you a quote. But another thing that somebody recommended to me one time that I found very valuable, because as I stepped into the crane industry, I was new to it myself. They said there are industry magazines and materials and literature for almost every industry out there. They don't sell them on the newsstand, but like the towing industry has magazines that are just for the towing industry. And they have articles and vendors that service that industry. And all of the manufacturers that sell cranes, they advertise and participate in the crane industry literature, which none of you have ever seen or would have any other reason to see. But there's magazines and websites that are just for that industry. So there's a lot of tools and resources available for any industry if you look for them.
You were talking about how when you finished your second master's degree, you turned down the job and then you wanted to be an entrepreneur. Did you ever have any other business ideas, or did you have any other goals before you decided to go with the crane business?
I had a good friend that owned a lawn spraying company, and he wanted me to go into business with him to do that. And that was one of the opportunities I looked at when I came back. But I think as an entrepreneur, you're always looking for ideas and ways to create revenue. Since we've owned the company, we've started a couple other companies. We've bought and sold some of them, and we've integrated into our company, like the trucking company. And if you look for revenue opportunities and good people, it's just the revenue, right? The revenue is what matters. You want to look. That's the most important thing. You look for opportunities to create revenue, and then you kind of build on that. I think that's more important than an idea, right? Like, look for a revenue stream.
How many cranes do you have?
We have about 100. About 100. Good question.
How hard is it to work?
When you do what you like, it's not hard work, baby. Good question.
First off, cute family.
Thank you.
They're sitting in front of me over there. My question is more of a networking question. It sounds like in your ventures you had a lot of help from personal relationships who also had a lot of access to capital and experience. For people who don't personally know those people, who are trying to get involved with those kinds of people, obviously the answer is networking, but when you're presented with someone that maybe you think is the ideal person you want to network with, but maybe your personalities don't really click, or maybe they're not interested in who you are as a person, how do you go about that kind of networking? So
I want to clarify one thing, and I probably didn't do a very good job of presenting this. Like, we grew up very modestly, and I like my father and uncle didn't. I mean, I think at its peak the company billed a few $100,000. So it wasn't a. And this and I want to kind of key off on that as like empowering yourself to quit. So like, I don't want you to think that other people have access to things that I don't. So how do I overcome that? Well, you just ask questions and attack it, right? Like if your personality, or you're not feeling like you're being productive with the relationship you're trying to build with somebody, move on to somebody else. And don't assume, that's another big mistake, right? Don't assume that you have any idea what resource or support somebody could provide you, right? Just ask questions, get to know them. And the most effective way, and for me, one of the things I took a lot of pride in was they had a board where my dad and uncle kept track of who did the most towing for a day. So they would track the total tow dollars you created. And it was epic. I mean, if you worked hard, you could do like $500 in a day. Well, they kept track of this board, and I made it a goal, and I told my dad and uncle that any shift I worked, I'd land on the top of that board. And because I wasn't a full-time employee, I got the fill-in shifts. So I was always third call out and had to find ways to find illegally parked cars and different things to push the number up. But my uncle told me that the only reason that he was comfortable in buying into me is because even though there was no reason for me to be at the top of the board, I always figured out how to be at the top of the tow board when there was no reason to do that. And he knew I was just coming down for the weekend to fill in. But I succeeded at that, even though, why put in all the time and effort? I will get, my dad owned the company. I could just collect. You got commission or hourly. So you could go to bed and get $64 an hour and do nothing. Or you could spend all night being awake and you had to tow more than $400 before you benefited from working as opposed to the hourly. And a lot of guys would just go to bed and collect the $64 because it's free money. And I always made it a point of trying to figure out how to get onto commission to build extra dollars. But showing to them that I took that seriously and that I was driven to succeed at that and work hard, that, aided me in, getting them to believe that I could accomplish things. So no matter how small the task is or how unlikely it seems like it'll inferior, I feel like a lot of people, they look at the end, right? Like they look at the $1 million idea and they're thinking about what they would do and how they would get the $1 million idea. Nobody spends the time to come back here and say, I'm just going to be the best manager at the Aggie ice cream they've ever had. Like nobody wants to be that person. But the problem is when you home run that deal, then somebody's going to be like, that gal's amazing. I'm going to recommend it to my friend who I know who's looking for somebody. Right? Because you did awesome at that. Well, if you can't be an awesome at that, you're not going to be able to build up to anything. And most people are waiting like, well, I'm going to engage awesome when I have a $10 million company. But between now and then, why work so hard? I'm going to go golfing. But if you're not awesome at those little opportunities and tasks, you're not going to get doors for other ones opened.
Thank you.
All right, last question.
So I've known about your company for probably like half of my life. I don't know if you still work with Josh Martin, but yes.
This company wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Josh Martin.
That's awesome. He's an awesome guy. Years ago, he gave me a sweatshirt with your company's logo on it. He's a good family friend. I still have it. It's so comfortable. I've been doing free marketing for you for years. Free marketing for you. No, my question is, when you had the confidence to go in there to go and tell that guy oh yeah, I'm here to buy your crane business, where do you find that confidence and the motivation and the energy to believe in yourself to make those kinds of statements?
So I think the thing that, first of all, two things. I'm going to talk about the Josh Martin thing in a second. But first of all, I think what people, the thing I don't understand is people convince themselves, they empower themselves to quit. This is my thing, right? You don't want to be awkward, or you don't want to embarrass yourself, or you don't want to embarrass the person, right? So you come up with a completely empowering excuse not to ask. What's the worst thing that can happen? The answer is nothing. I mean, how many times is, what is it? So he goes, well, I'm busy and don't want to talk. Well, how's that any different than when I wasn't talking to him? You have nothing to lose. There's no downside. Your own personal social awkwardness, if that's what's preventing it. And the thing is, the more you do it, like anything, the better you get at it. So the more you're willing to approach people, and the more you're willing to communicate with them, the more you're willing to ask awkward questions, then the next time you do it, it's less awkward. And you get more and more comfortable with it. But if you don't ever start the process, then yeah, you leave a room going, man, that guy was neat, and I didn't go up and pick his brain. Why? You have no idea why you didn't. Because you were shy or awkward. Well, how does that progress the goals you have personally? It doesn't. They know if they don't have time to talk to you or they don't want to talk about it, 99% of people will politely say, hey, I'm busy. Oh, okay. Well, how are you any worse off than you were before? But the other thing that is beyond important is this company was built by a lot of very talented individuals. Now, I'm fortunate enough to be the leader of that team. And Josh and I are extremely complementary, and he's the guy that has the hustle. And him and I really have built the identity of hustle and revenue for this company. And it's just so important that you find good people. Some people do it on their own, but you cannot succeed without good people around you. You cannot succeed. You've got to find people that compliment you and push you and drive you and challenge you. You cannot overstate how important good people are. That's been my number one key to success. No questions asked, is surrounding myself with extremely talented, extremely success-oriented people. And Josh is one of them for absolutely. Thank you.
All right, guys, let's all give Paul a great big round of applause for coming tonight.